The vast emptiness of space stretched out in all directions, dotted with countless stars and swirling galaxies. In this cosmic arena, the Rax Confederation had long believed themselves to be the masters of all they surveyed. For centuries, they had spread across the stars, conquering and absorbing lesser species into their ever-growing empire. The Rax were not one single race, but a collection of alien species united under a common banner. They came in all shapes and sizes, some with multiple limbs, others with scales or feathers, and a few even made of living crystal. Despite their differences, they shared one common trait, a deep-seated belief in their own superiority. At the heart of Rax territory lay their capital world, Zenth. It was a planet of towering spires and gleaming technology, where the ruling council made decisions that affected billions of lives across thousands of worlds. In one of the highest towers, overlooking the sprawling cityscape, stood Taiwan, the newly appointed head of expansion. Taiwan's skin shimmered with a metallic blue hue as he gazed out at the bustling metropolis below. His four eyes blinked in sequence, each one taking in a different spectrum of light. He felt a sense of pride swell in his chest. The Rax had come so far, and yet there was still so much of the galaxy left to claim. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he said, his voice a melodious trill. The door slid open with a whisper, and in walked his assistant, Yuna. She was of a different species, with green, plant-like skin and leaves that rustled gently as she moved. In her hands, she held a glowing datavat. "Sir," Yuna said, her voice tinged with excitement, "we've received reports from the outer sectors. Our scout ships have discovered a new star system that shows signs of intelligent life." Taiwan's interest was immediately piqued. It had been decades since they'd encountered a new spacefaring race. "Show me," he commanded, turning away from the window. Yuna placed the datapad on Taiwan's desk, and a holographic map of the galaxy sprang to life. It zoomed in on a spiral arm far from the core of Rax space, highlighting a small, unremarkable yellow star. "It's a backwater system," Yuna explained, "but our long-range scans have detected artificial signals coming from the third planet. They're crude, but definitely the product of an advanced civilization." Taiwan studied the hologram intently. "Interesting. What do we know about them?" Yuna's leaves rustled as she shook her head. "Very little, sir. The signals are encrypted, and we haven't been able to decode them yet. But we have observed their solar system and detected signs of mining operations on several of their planets and moons." A slow smile spread across Taiwan's face, revealing rows of sharp, metallic teeth. "So, they have some technological capabilities. But surely nothing that could rival the Rax Confederation." "That's what we believed, sir," Yuna agreed. "Should we send a diplomatic envoy?" Taiwan waved a dismissive hand. "No, not yet. Let's observe them a while longer. Send in more scout ships, but make sure they remain undetected. I want to know everything about these creatures before we make our presence known." Yuna nodded and made a note on her datavat. "Of course, sir. I'll give the orders right away." As his assistant turned to leave, Taiwan called out, "Oh, and Yuna, make sure to classify this information. Top secret. We don't want any other factions getting wind of our discovery." "Understood, sir," Yuna replied before exiting the room. Alone once more, Taiwan returned to the window. His gaze drifted upward, past the gleaming buildings and into the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, a new race was going about their lives, blissfully unaware of the great Rax Confederation. He wondered how they would react when they learned they were not alone in the universe. Would they be awed, terrified, or perhaps defiant? The thought made him chuckle. It didn't matter, really. Like all the others before them, this new species would soon learn their place in the galactic order. The Rax always won in the end. Little did Taiwan know that this discovery would change everything. The beings on that distant blue planet were unlike anything the Rax had encountered before. They were called humans, and they were about to turn the galaxy on its head. As the sun set on Zenth, casting long shadows across the city, Tai-1 felt a shiver of excitement run down his spine. A new chapter in Rax history was about to unfold, and he would be at the center of it all. The stage was set. The players were moving into position. And soon, very soon, the Rax Confederation would learn that sometimes the hunter can become the hunted. Months passed since the Rax Confederation discovered the distant solar system. Their scout ships watched from afar, hidden behind the cover of asteroids and space debris. They gathered data on the blue planet called Earth and its inhabitants, the humans. Captain Min-Su stood on the bridge of the Rax scout ship, Stargazer. He was tall and thin, with scaly purple skin that shimmered under the ship's lights. His large, round eyes blinked as he studied the view screen showing Earth. "Sir," called out Ju-1, the ship's sensor operator, "we're picking up a signal from the third planet's moon. It seems to be a base of some kind." Min-Su's antenna twitched with interest. A moon base? How exciting. It seems these humans are more advanced than we thought. He turned to his second-in-command, Su-Yan. "Prepare a small landing party. It's time we got a closer look at these creatures." Su-Yan looked worried. "But sir, our orders were to observe only. We're not supposed to make contact." Min-Su waved his hand dismissively. "A quick peek won't hurt. We'll be in and out before they even know we're there." A few hours later, a small Rax shuttle approached the dark side of Earth's moon. It landed silently near the human outpost, its cloaking device hiding it from view. Min-Su led a team of 4 Rax explorers out onto the moon's surface. They moved carefully in their spacesuits, approaching the base with a mix of curiosity and caution. As they neared the airlock, Min-Su spotted movement inside. "Look!" he whispered excitedly over the comm. "It's one of them." Through the thick glass, they saw a human in a bulky white suit. The human was facing away from them, busy with some kind of equipment. "Let's get closer," Min-Su said, creeping forward. But as they approached, the human turned and spotted them. Both sides froze, staring at each other in shock. The human's reaction was quick. He slammed his hand on a big red button next to the airlock. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the base. "We've been spotted," Su-Yan cried. "We need to leave now." But Min-Su was too curious. He stepped closer, raising his hands in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. The airlock door hissed open, and 3 more humans rushed out, holding strange objects in their hands. Min-Su didn't recognize the devices, but their stance made it clear. These were weapons. "Wait," Min-Su called out, forgetting the humans couldn't understand him. "We come in peace." One of the humans shouted something, pointing their weapon at the Rax team. Min-Su's translator struggled to make sense of the words, but the tone was clear. A warning. Panic set in. Su-Yan grabbed Min-Su's arm. "We have to go. They're hostile." As the Rax team turned to flee, one of the nervous human guards fired his weapon. A bright beam of energy shot past Min-Su's head, missing him by inches. "Return fire," Min-Su yelled, his peaceful intentions forgotten in the heat of the moment. The Rax pulled out their own weapons, small, sleek devices that emitted pulses of blue energy. The human guards dove for cover as the alien weapons scorched the ground around them. In the chaos, no one noticed a stray shot hit a nearby oxygen tank. There was a moment of terrible silence, then a deafening explosion rocked the lunar surface. The blast knocked everyone off their feet. When the dust settled, Min-Su looked up in horror. Part of the human base was in ruins, and 2 of the guards lay motionless on the ground. "What have we done?" Su-Yan whispered, her voice shaking. Min-Su felt sick. This was supposed to be a simple observation mission. Now they had not only revealed themselves to the humans, but had also caused death and destruction. "Back to the ship," he ordered, his voice hollow. "We need to report this to command immediately." As they rushed back to their shuttle, Min-Su's mind raced. He had underestimated the humans, and his mistake had cost lives. He feared this disastrous first contact would have grave consequences for both their species. The Rax shuttle took off, leaving behind a damaged base and confused, angry humans. As they sped back to the Stargazer, Min soon knew that everything had changed. The peaceful observation was over. Now they had made enemies of the very beings they came to study. Little did Min soon know, his actions had set in motion events that would shake the entire Rax Confederation to its core. The humans, once unaware of alien life, were about to make their presence known to the galaxy in a way no one could have predicted. As the Stargazer turned and sped away from the Earth's solar system, the first seeds of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy had been sown. The true capabilities of humanity were still unknown, but soon, very soon, the Rax would learn just how dangerous it was to underestimate these strange new creatures from Earth. The news of the alien attack on the moon base spread quickly across Earth. People everywhere were shocked and scared. For the first time, humans knew they were not alone in the universe. But their first meeting with aliens had gone very badly. In a large, secret room deep under the city of New York, the Earth Defense Council gathered. Men and women from all over the world sat around a huge round table. They were the leaders who would decide how Earth would respond to this new threat. President Laura Chen stood up. Her face was serious as she looked at the other council members. "We've been attacked," she said. "We must decide what to do next." A man with a thick beard spoke up. "We should strike back," he said angrily. "Show these aliens we're not weak." Others nodded, but a woman with short gray hair shook her head. "We don't know how strong they are," she warned. "A wrong move could bring their whole army down on us." The room buzzed with worried talk. Then, a quiet voice spoke up. "We need to send a message." Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Admiral Jae-ho Kim, the head of Earth's space fleet. He was an older man with kind eyes but a strong voice. "Not an attack," Admiral Jae-ho continued, "but a show of strength. We need to let these aliens know that we're not helpless, that we can defend ourselves if we must." President Chen nodded slowly. "What do you suggest, Admiral?" Admiral Jae-ho stood up. "We send our best ship, the HSS Thunderbolt." A gasp went around the room. The Thunderbolt was Earth's newest and most powerful spaceship. It was huge, almost a kilometer long, and filled with the best weapons humans had ever made. "We send the Thunderbolt to the edge of our solar system," Jae-ho said. "We show these aliens that we're not afraid, that we're ready if they come back." The council talked for hours. Some people thought it was too risky. Others worried it might start a war. But in the end, they agreed. Earth needed to look strong. President Chen turned to Admiral Jae-ho. "Very well. The Thunderbolt will go. But who will lead this mission?" Jae-ho stood up straight. "I will," he said firmly. "I've trained for this my whole life. I'm ready." The next day, Admiral Jae-ho stood in a big room full of screens and controls. It was the bridge of the HSS Thunderbolt. Around him, men and women worked at their stations, getting the huge ship ready to leave. Jae-ho looked out the main window. He could see the curve of Earth below, beautiful and blue. He thought about all the people down there, counting on him and his crew to keep them safe. "Sir," a young woman said, walking up to him, "the ship is ready. We can leave whenever you give the order." Jae-ho nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant Sumin," he said. He took a deep breath and pressed a button on his chair. His voice echoed through the whole ship. "Attention all crew," he said. "This is Admiral Jae-ho. We are about to start the most important mission in human history. We go to meet an alien race to show them that humanity is strong and brave. Each one of you was chosen because you are the best at what you do. I know you won't let Earth down." He paused, then spoke again, his voice firm and clear. "Let's show these aliens what humans can do. Prepare for launch." The bridge burst into action. Voices called out readings and orders. Huge engines deep in the ship roared to life. Slowly, gracefully, The massive HSS Thunderbolt rose from its dock on the moon. It turned its nose to the stars and began to move. As the ship picked up speed, leaving the Earth and moon behind, Jeho felt a mix of excitement and fear. He didn't know what they would find out there, but he knew one thing for sure. The aliens were about to learn that humans were a force to be reckoned with. The HSS Thunderbolt streaked across the solar system, carrying with it the hopes and fears of all humanity. The next chapter in Earth's history was about to be written among the stars. The HS Thunderbolt moved swiftly through space, its powerful engines pushing it faster than any human ship had ever gone before. Admiral Jeho stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by on the big screen in front of him. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Sumin, "we're approaching the edge of our solar system." Jeho nodded. "Slow us down," he ordered, "and start scanning for any alien ships." As the Thunderbolt slowed to a stop, the crew waited nervously. They didn't have to wait long. "Contact," shouted the sensor officer. Multiple ships detected approaching from the outer system. Jeho leaned forward in his chair. "Show me," he said calmly. The main screen lit up with an image of several strange-looking ships. They were shaped like giant leaves, shimmering with a metallic green color. At the front of the group was a larger ship, its surface covered in what looked like glowing veins. "That must be their flagship," Jeho said, pointing at the largest ship. "Hail them." For a few tense moments, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the screen flickered and showed the inside of the alien ship. Standing there was a tall, thin creature with purple scaly skin and large round eyes. "I am Commander Yun-Su of the Rax Confederation," the alien said in a voice that sounded like singing. "Why have you come to our territory?" Jeho stood up straight. "I am Admiral Jeho Kim of Earth," he said firmly. "And this is not your territory. We've come to talk about the attack on our moon base." Yun-Su's eyes blinked rapidly. "Attack? We were merely observing. It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that cost lives," Jeho replied. "We want to make sure it doesn't happen again." As they talked, Yun-Su couldn't help but stare at the human ship behind Jeho. The Thunderbolt was like nothing the Rax had ever seen before. It was huge, easily 3 times the size of the Rax flagship. Its shape reminded Yun-Su of a giant arrow, pointing straight at the Rax fleet. The ship's dark gray surface was broken up by lines of glowing blue light that pulsed gently. All along the Thunderbolt's sides, Yun-Su could see what looked like weapon ports. There were hundreds of them, far more than any Rax ship carried. And at the front of the ship was a massive cannon that made Yun-Su feel very, very small. What kind of ship is that?" Yun-Su asked, trying to keep the fear out of their voice. Jeho smiled slightly. "This is the HSS Thunderbolt," he said, "the pride of Earth's fleet." Yun-Su swallowed hard. They had thought the humans were a young, weak species. But this ship, this was the work of an advanced civilization, one that could be a real threat to the Rax. On the Rax ships, the crews were panicking. They had expected to find a few primitive vessels, easy to scare or destroy. Instead, they were facing a monster of a ship that made their entire fleet look like toys. "Admiral," Lieutenant Sumin whispered to Jeho, "the alien ships are powering up their weapons." Jeho nodded, then turned back to the screen. "Commander Yun-Su," he said calmly, "I hope you're not thinking of doing anything foolish. We came to talk, but we're ready to defend ourselves if we must." Yun-Su's antenna twitched nervously. We must protect ourselves too," they said, but their voice shook. Jeho's face turned serious. "Let me be clear," he said. "We don't want to fight. But if you start one, we will finish it. The choice is yours." The bridge of the Thunderbolt was silent as everyone waited for the Rax response. Jeho could see the fear in Yun-Su's eyes, the way the alien commander kept glancing at the weapons on the Thunderbolt. Finally, Yun-Su spoke. Perhaps we should talk more," they said slowly. "To avoid any more misunderstandings. Jeho nodded, hiding his relief. I think that's a wise decision, he said. Shall we begin? As the two leaders started to talk, the crews of both fleets relaxed a little. The moment of greatest danger had passed. But as the humans and Rax began their first real conversation, both sides knew that everything had changed. The galaxy would never be the same again. And it all started with the moment the Rax first encountered a human battleship and froze in fear. The space between the human and Rax ships was tense. Both fleets faced each other, weapons ready but not firing. On the screens of both flagships, Admiral Jeho and Commander Yun-Su looked at each other, trying to understand this new situation. Let's start over, Jeho said calmly. We came here to talk about peace, not to fight. Can we agree on that? Yun-Su's antenna twitched nervously. Yes, they said slowly. Peace would be good. As they talked, Lieutenant Su-min whispered to Jeho, Sir, we're picking up a lot of chatter from the Rax ships. They seem very worried about our weapons. Jeho nodded slightly. He turned back to the screen. Commander Yun-Su, you seem concerned about our ship. Would you like to know more about it? Yun-Su's large eyes blinked rapidly. You would share such information. Some of it, Jeho said with a small smile, as a sign of good faith. He gestured to the ship around him. The HSS Thunderbolt is our newest and most advanced ship. It's over 900 meters long and can carry a crew of 500. Yun-Su's mouth dropped open in shock. Their largest ships were only 300 meters long and needed 1,000 crew to run them. Jeho continued, We have shields that can withstand the heat of a star, engines that can push us to half the speed of light, and weapons that can hit a target from millions of kilometers away. With each word, Yun-Su felt smaller and smaller. The Rax had thought they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. But these humans, they were on a whole different level. How? Yun-Su asked, their voice barely a whisper. How did you build such a ship? We thought you were a young species. Jeho's face turned serious. We are young, he said, but we've had to grow up fast. Our history is full of wars and conflicts. We've learned to build amazing things, but also terrible weapons. He paused, then added, We don't want to use those weapons, Yun-Su. We want peace. But we will defend ourselves if we have to. Yun-Su nodded slowly, understanding. The Rax had always seen themselves as the top species, ready to rule over lesser races, but now they were face to face with a species that could crush them easily. I need to talk to my leaders, Yun-Su said. This changes everything. Jeho nodded. Of course. Take your time. We'll wait here. As the screen went dark, Jeho turned to his crew. Stay alert, he said. They're scared, and scared people can do stupid things. Hours passed. The human crew stayed ready, watching the Rax ships carefully. Finally, the screen lit up again. Yun-Su was back, but they looked different. Their purple scales seemed paler, and their eyes were wide. Admiral Jeho, Yun-Su said, their voice shaking a little. I've spoken with the Rax High Council. We want to apologize for the incident on your moon. It was a terrible mistake. Jeho nodded. We accept your apology, he said. What happens now? Yun-Su took a deep breath. We want to learn from you, they said. For so long, we thought we were the most advanced beings in the galaxy, but you've shown us how wrong we were. There's so much we could learn from each other. Jeho smiled. I agree, he said. We have a lot to learn from you too, Yun-Su. Your ships might be smaller than ours, but they're beautiful. And you've explored so much more of the galaxy than we have. For the first time, Yun-Su smiled too. Perhaps, they said, this is the start of a great friendship between our peoples. As the two leaders began to talk more, the crews of both fleets started to relax. The Rax ships turned off their weapons. The human crew cheered quietly. Lieutenant Sumin looked at Jaiho with awe. "Sir," she said, "you just changed the whole galaxy without firing a single shot." Jaiho shook his head. "No, Sumin," he said. "We all did. This ship, this crew, and the people back on Earth who built it. We showed the galaxy that humans are a force to be reckoned with. But more importantly, we showed that we can be a force for peace." As the Thunderbolt and the Rax ships began to move side by side, ready to start their journey of friendship and learning, everyone knew that a new era had begun. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter, welcoming this new alliance into the vast expanse of space. As the human and Rax ships floated side by side in space, Admiral Jaiho could see that Commander Yunsu was still nervous. The Rax leader kept looking at the Thunderbolt's weapons, as if worried they might suddenly start firing. Jaiho had an idea. He turned to Lieutenant Sumin. "Are there any uninhabited planets or large asteroids nearby?" he asked. Sumin checked her screens. "Yes, sir," she replied. "There's a big asteroid about 500,000 kilometers from here." Jaiho nodded and turned back to the screen where Yunsu was waiting. "Commander," he said, "would you like to see what the Thunderbolt can do?" Yunsu's antenna twitched nervously. "What do you mean?" they asked. "A demonstration," Jaiho explained. "Not against you or your ships, of course, but on that asteroid over there." He pointed to a spot on Yunsu's screen. Yunsu looked unsure. Is it safe?" they asked. Jaiho smiled reassuringly. "Completely safe," he said. "Your ships can stay right where they are. In fact, I invite you to scan the asteroid before and after our demonstration. That way, you can see exactly what our weapons can do." After a moment, Yunsu nodded. "Very well," they said. "We will watch." Jaiho turned to his crew. "All right, people," he said. "Let's show our new friends what humans can do. Prepare all weapon systems for demonstration." The bridge of the Thunderbolt came alive with activity. Crew members called out readings and status updates as they prepared the ship's impressive array of weapons. "Sir," called out the weapons officer, "all systems are ready, awaiting your command." Jaiho nodded. He looked at the screen where Yunsu and the other Rax were watching nervously. "Watch closely," he said. Then he gave the order. "Fire main cannon." A bright blue beam of energy shot out from the front of the Thunderbolt. It traveled the huge distance to the asteroid in less than a second. When it hit, there was a blinding flash of light. As the light faded, everyone gasped. A huge chunk of the asteroid, almost a quarter of its mass, was simply gone, vaporized by the powerful beam. Before anyone could react, Jaiho gave another order. "Launch missile barrage." Dozens of small, sleek missiles streaked out from the sides of the Thunderbolt. They raced towards the asteroid, leaving trails of light behind them. When they hit, the asteroid broke apart into hundreds of smaller pieces. "Now," Jaiho said calmly, "the cleanup." He nodded to his weapons officer. Suddenly, hundreds of small energy beams shot out from all over the Thunderbolt. They hit the asteroid pieces with incredible accuracy, turning each one into harmless dust. In less than 5 minutes, where there had once been a massive asteroid, there was nothing but a cloud of fine particles drifting in space. The bridge of the Thunderbolt was silent. Jaiho looked at the screen. Yunsu and the other Rax were staring with their mouths open, too shocked to speak. Finally, Yunsu found their voice. That's impossible," they whispered. Jaiho shook his head. "Not impossible," he said. "Just very, very advanced. This is why we don't want war, Yunsu. We don't want to use these weapons on anyone, but we will if we have to." Yunsu nodded slowly, understanding at last. "I see now," they said. "You truly are a force to be reckoned with, but also a force for peace." Jaiho added quickly, "Remember, we came here to talk, not to fight. This demonstration was to show you why fighting us would be a bad idea. We'd much rather be friends and learn from each other." For the first time, Yunsu smiled. It was a strange sight on their alien face, but it made Jaho feel hopeful. "Yes," Iamsu said. "Friends. I think the Rax Confederation would very much like to be friends with humans." As the two leaders began to discuss plans for future meetings and exchanges, the crews of both fleets relaxed. The demonstration had been scary, but it had also cleared the air. Now, everyone could see that peace was not just possible, but the best path forward. The stars twinkled around them, witnesses to this historic moment. Humans and Rax, two species from different parts of the galaxy, were taking their first steps towards a shared future. And it all started because of a big, impressive ship called the Thunderbolt. In the days that followed the dramatic meeting between the HS Thunderbolt and the Rax fleet, both humans and aliens were busy. Messages flew back and forth between Earth and the Rax homeworld. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. On the Rax capital planet of Zenth, the High Council was in an uproar. Tadawun, the head of expansion, stood before them, his blue skin pale with worry. "How could we have been so wrong?" One council member shouted. "We thought the humans were weak." Taewon held up his hands. "We made a mistake," he said, "but now we have a chance to learn from it. The humans want peace, not war. We should listen to them." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Jaho was meeting with the Defense Council. He told them everything that had happened. "You should have seen their faces when we destroyed that asteroid," he said with a small smile. "I think we made our point clear." President Chen nodded. "Good work, Admiral," she said. "But what happens now? Do we trust these aliens?" Jaho thought for a moment. "I think we can," he said. "They're not bad, just different, and a little afraid of us now." Over the next few weeks, both humans and Rax worked hard to understand each other better. They set up special communication channels and started to share information about their cultures and technologies. The Rax were amazed by human art, music, and food. They couldn't believe how many different cultures existed on just one planet. Humans, in turn, were fascinated by Rax technology, especially their faster-than-light travel methods. But it wasn't always easy. Sometimes there were misunderstandings or arguments. The Rax didn't understand why humans had so many different countries and leaders. Humans found it hard to grasp the Rax's complex social structure based on their different alien species. Despite these challenges, both sides kept trying. They knew that working together was better than fighting. 3 months after the first meeting, a big event happened. A Rax ship visited Earth for the first time. It landed in a special area built just for this moment. Millions of people watched on screens all over the world as Commander Yunsu stepped out onto Earth's soil. President Chen was there to greet them. "Welcome to Earth," she said, holding out her hand. Yunsu looked at the hand, confused for a moment. Then they remembered what they had learned about human greetings. Carefully, they reached out and shook the president's hand. The crowd cheered. It was a small gesture, but it meant so much. 2 different species, from different parts of the galaxy, were becoming friends. At the same time, human scientists were visiting the Rax homeworld. They marveled at the alien cities and strange plants. Everything was new and exciting. As the months passed, more and more people and aliens traveled between Earth and Rax worlds. They set up schools where young humans and Rax could learn together. They started businesses that used ideas from both cultures. But the biggest change was in space. Human and Rax ships began to work together, exploring the galaxy side by side. The HSS Thunderbolt, once seen as a scary weapon, now led the way in these peaceful missions. 1 year after the first meeting, Admiral Jiho stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt again. But this time, he wasn't alone. Commander Yunsu stood next to him, looking out at the stars. "I never thought I'd be here," Yunsu said, standing on a human ship, about to explore a new solar system together. Jeho smiled. "Life is full of surprises," he said. "A year ago, we were afraid of each other. Now look at us." As the Thunderbolt and a Rax ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed together, Jiho thought about how much had changed. Humans were no longer alone in the universe. They had found not just aliens, but friends. The galaxy was a different place now. Humans and Rax were working together to make it better, safer, and more peaceful. There were still challenges ahead, of course, but as long as they remembered that day when aliens first encountered a human battleship and chose peace over fear, Jiho knew they could face anything. The ship's engines hummed to life. In a flash of light, they were gone, racing towards new adventures in the vast, wonderful galaxy they now shared.